Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namane Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarane Trinadapi Sunichena Taradeva Sahishnuna Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadahari Hare Nama Hare Nama Hare Namaiva Kevalam Kulo Nastyeva 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 Gatiranyata Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May Krishna bless each and every one of you. May you feel the presence of Krishna in your heart. As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Bhoktaram Yagya Tapasang Sarvaloka Maheshwaram Suhridang Sarvabhutanang Shantamam Richam Gacchati. Anyone who understands that Krishna is the ultimate enjoyer, the ultimate controller, anyone who understands that Krishna is the supreme proprietor, and if anyone can understand that Krishna in the heart is your dearmost friend, these three things will allow you to have peace in your mind and heart. These days, all over the world, this is what is most needed. But unfortunately, most of the world does not know this verse of Bhagavad Gita, what to speak of accepting it. But you do. So you should have Shantim Richati. Just have to accept these three things. Tonight, I'm going to speak from Srimad Bhagavatam, the science of God, the postgraduate study of religion. Just as a little side story, I have a Muslim friend. He is my computer tech. Whenever I have a problem with my computer, I call this Muslim from Afghanistan. But he's married to a Latino Christian. And every time he comes over, he always comes to my place. I don't have to go to him. He comes to me. And every time he comes, he'll ask me, tell me something about your philosophy. So today, he was asking more than usual. So I gave him one of my Bhagavad Gita DVDs. And then as he was leaving, he was telling me, you know what my favorite food is? He says, I'm not making this up. He says, I go to Little India, but my favorite prasad in my whole life is he went to Amritsar, the Golden Temple, and he said there they have this dal and chapati. He says, nothing compares to this dal and chapati from that Golden Temple. He said he's always tasting and he says, no, nothing. Have any of you had that? Is he correct? Is it that good? I've never had. Is it that good? So he said to me that he's going to tell his daughters, we have to go back to India because I want to taste that dal and chapati. So this man is so nice. He helps me. He'll come anytime I call. He came 2 days in a row. So I gave him my Bhagavad Gita DVD. So I want to bless him. His name is Shah Adli. May Krishna bless him. And may he taste that dal and chapati in Amritsar. So Srimad Bhagavatam, Nigama Kalpatura Galitam Phalam, is the ripened fruit of the tree of knowledge which we call Vedas. The tree of knowledge. So it's the ripened fruit. It is the postgraduate study of religion. In Hinduism, religion comprises 4 things, and it will be mentioned in today's narration. Dharma, Artha, Kam, Moksha. These are the 4 items of Hindu religion. But tonight, we're going to hear from Sanat Kumar. Sanat Kumar and his 3 brothers, they are the first born from Lord Brahma. Lord Brahma is generated by Garbhodakashayi Vishnu. Therefore, Lord Brahma is the Son of God. So, there's the Christian religion. They teach that Jesus is the Son of God. And I tell them, yes, we accept that, but he's not the only Son of God. And I show them, here is Lord Brahma, directly manifested from Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, as Prabhupada explains, without the help of Lakshmi. He told Lakshmi, you rest. I will produce Lord Brahma from my own navel. And then from Brahma, all the other living entities. And so the first generation is these 4 Kumaras. They're the first. So they are what is called Shakya Avesh Avatar. They are living entities like you and me, but because of their great austerities and penance and blessings, they have been given Jnana Shakti. They have been given the potency to understand and explain transcendental knowledge. Now, just to say a little something. Once the 4 Kumaras, they were permitted to enter Vaikuntha. At this time, they were not devotees. They were Brahman realized, they were self-realized, but they did not understand Bhagavan. They understood Brahman, impersonal spiritual realization. Once they were allowed entrance into Vaikuntha, and then there was the incident of the cursing of Jai Vijay. And Jai and Vijay became the first demons, Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha. But before that incident, when the 4 Kumaras entered Vaikuntha, they smelled a certain aroma. That aroma was the tulsi and the saffron that was smeared on the lotus feet of Narayan. Everybody say? when they smelled that tulsi and saffron smeared on the lotus feet of Narayan, they say, in the Bhagavatam, they say, actually it's Lord Brahma who's telling the narration, not they, but they said, but Lord Brahma is telling the demigods this incident, that when they smelled that aroma, they had a complete change of heart. And they became bhaktas. They became devotees by that smell. In my own life, back in 1973, when I started to visit the temple in Brooklyn, the ISKCON temple in Brooklyn, I had to take a bus, then a subway. It would take me a good hour from my house to go to the temple. So I was starting to go as often as I could. And the temple, as soon as I entered the corner of the temple, there was this powerful smell coming from the kitchen. And that smell was like telling me, come, come. That smell coming from the kitchen was so nice, actually intoxicating. And it was like saying, okay, you have reached, now enter. That smell was so powerful. So you all, well, you should know, the description of Maharaj Ambarish, how he utilized all of his senses. So it is explained that Ambarish used to smell the flowers that were offered to the deity. So you'll know in many temples, once they do the arti, the flower is passed around, and that is purifying. Just like when we offer the incense, that incense is also purifying. In the Catholic religion that I was raised, they have this thing called sacrament. It's certain things that when you come in contact with these sacraments, you become purified, you become cleansed. So we also have that. When we smell the incense offered to Krishna, that's a sacrament. Or the flower, or when the water is sprinkled, that's a sacrament. So we take advantage of these things and purify our existence. So the four Kumaras, in this particular episode, extract that I'm speaking tonight, they are headed by Sanat Kumar. And they are instructing Maharaj Prithu. Last week I explained the glories of Maharaj Prithu. So last week there was one statement from Sanat Kumar. Tonight there are 8 verses. So if you allow me, I want to chant the Sanskrit, because that is another sacrament. When you chant these Sanskrit slokas, you also become purified. Sanskrit is a reforming language, unlike English. You don't get any spiritual benefit from English. But just chanting the Sanskrit shlokas, you make spiritual advancement. So there's 8 of them. Please allow me. But first, I forgot. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Tonight's lecture is going to be too good because I'm in a very good mood. Despite the fact that my wife lost her job on Thursday, still I'm in a very good mood. Maybe you could bless her and say a prayer for her, because, anyway, thank you. So here is the shlokas from Sanat Kumar. As you can see, my computer is gone because my Muslim friend is working on it. He couldn't solve it, so he had to take it home, and he said, I'll have it for you on Tuesday. Here is the shlokas. Atmanam indriyartam cha paryangyad ubhayor api satyashaya upadavai puman pashyati nanyada nimitte sati sarvatra jalada vapi purusha atmanascha parasyapi viddang pashyati nanyada indriyaya vishaya krishtaya akshtam jayatang manah Chaitanang harate buddhe stambastoyam iva hradat brashyat yanumismitas chitang jnana brangsha smriti kshaye tadrodang kavaya prahur atma pavnanavam atmanaha natta parataro loke pungsak svarta vyatikrama yadyanyasya prayetsvan atmana svavyatikramat Arthendriyartya vidyanang sarvata pannavo nirdang brangshito jnana vigyanad yena vishati mukyatam nakuryat karyachit sangang tamasti vrang tatirishu dharmatta kama mokshanang yad adyanta vighatakam tatrapi moksha evarta atyata kata yeshyate Traivargyotho yato nityang kritanta baya sangyuta. Not only is Sanskrit purifying, but the shlokas from Srimad Bhagavatam are even more purifying. So whether you recite or hear, you get the benefit. So Sanat Kumar is going to explain to us some very nice things, practical things. So Sanat Kumar is telling us, first he says, my dear King Prithu, when the soul exists for sense gratification, he or she creates different desires, and for that reason, the soul becomes subjected to designations. So let's explain this first little part. So, the soul in the material world is only doing one of two things: pursuing self-realization or pursuing sense gratification, the objects of the senses. Those are the only two choices for the soul in the material world. Either you're pursuing spiritual self-realization or chasing the objects of the senses. So Sanat Kumar is saying, so when the soul is existing for sense gratification, what happens? You create desires. And therefore, automatically, we become subjected to designations. Man, woman, black, white, American, Hindu, designations. This is not who we are. This is, you've heard me say, every lecture I give, first lesson of Bhagavad Gita, you're not your body. The body is a designation. As I think I explained last week, you're not the car you drive. If I call you, hey, Mercedes-Benz, that's ludicrous. You're not your car. You're the driver of the car. In the same way, we're not the body. Krishna is the driver. We're the passenger. Krishna is your Uber driver, and you are the passenger. Just like Arjuna on the battlefield. Krishna agreed to be his chariot driver. So Arjuna said, take my chariot. Krishna said, here you go. And Arjuna freaked out. So, designations of the body is the whole problem in this material world. It's the root cause. If everybody is thinking in terms of the body, then there's going to be conflict. That is the root cause of all the problems in the world. Okay, so let's move on now. There's lots of things. So what does he say now? But when the soul is in the transcendental position, the soul is no longer interested in anything, but wait, except fulfilling the desires of the Lord. Now this answers an important concept in Bhagavad Gita, because you will read, especially in chapter 2, how does one become peaceful, become free from desires? That's explained in chapter 2. But here it says, when you are transcendental, you're not interested in anything except fulfilling the desires of the Lord. So that's another desire, but it is transcendental. It is spiritual. So, and I've explained this hundreds of times. The soul has to desire. There's no question of the soul not desiring, because it's alive. Like we say, the will to survive, right? Where does that come from? That comes from the fact that the soul is in the body. That's why we don't want to die, because intrinsically or imperceptibly, because the soul is there, the soul knows that it doesn't want to die. There's no such thing as death. So this whole death experience is a foreign thing. So definitely the soul, everybody wants to live. So the soul has to desire. Only dead things cannot desire. Living soul has to desire. So the question becomes, what are the nature of your desires? So when Bhagavad Gita says one should become desireless, it means don't desire sense gratification or material things. And as he's saying here, desire to fulfill the senses of the Lord. That makes you desireless. In other words, desire means for my own personal gratification, or desires to serve God. Just like another example. What makes a successful marriage? When the husband is thinking, how can I help my loving wife? And simultaneously, not it's a one-way street, the wife is thinking, how can I assist my husband? It's a nice, cooperative relationship. When it becomes one way, that is not going to last. If it's me, 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 you serve me, me, that's not going to last. It has to be mutual, that I will do whatever I can to assist and serve. I'll use the word serve, yes. Okay, so in the same way, the soul exists to love and serve God. That's an existential question. Why do we even exist? We exist to share a loving relationship with God. That's why we exist. Practical example. Why did you procreate children? You procreated children because you wanted to share your happiness and love with someone else. When you got married, You went on a honeymoon, I assume. They do that in India? No? Do they do? Yeah, they do honeymoon. Okay. Right? Especially now, here in America. The honeymoon's a big thing. Okay? So, the husband and wife are happy together, but then they want to increase and share their happiness with someone else, the child. That's why we have children. That's why we put up with all the heartache and anxiety and hard labor, because we want to share love. So Krishna is the same way. We are, I'm not going to use the word created because that doesn't apply. Because Bhagavad Gita, 2nd chapter says, you were never created, you always existed. So you were never created, you always existed. So the better word is to, instead of the word God created us, God expanded us. Because very clear in Bhagavad Gita, Aham bija pita, I am the seed-giving father. Or Mamai Vangso Jiva Loke, you are my part and parcel. My favorite example, which I have been giving for the last 40 years, the sun and the sunshine. The sun ray is exactly the same quality as the sun, but the sun planet is all powerful. The sun ray, it's little. Right? If the sun ray was as powerful as the sun, that's the end of the planet. We would burn up. So the sun ray does not have the same potency as the sun planet. Same way, we living entities have all the qualities of God, but not the same potency. We are very, very tiny, tiny, tiny samples of God. When I'm in South America, I say, poquito, poquito, pequeño. Very, very atomic. Actually, that's correct. Atomic particles of the sun like Krishna. So we exist to share in God's love. But there's one catch. Free will. That changes the whole thing. Krishna has free will. Krishna is, in the first verse of Bhagavad Gita, you know this word, Swarat. Right? Swarat means independence. You got that from Britain. What year was that? Yeah, you got your independence. Right? So, since we're part and parcel of Krishna, we also have independence, but poquito, poquito, pequeño, minute independence. Unlike Krishna, who has unlimited independence. Ah, shucks. How come I don't have that? That's because we're part and parcel. Because we're not God. We're part and parcel of God. But we still have that minute free will. That's very, very important. We will never lose that free will. Either in heaven or hell, in any situation, we will never lose free will. Remember that. You will always have, it's part and parcel of you, free will. With that free will, we can at any time say to Krishna, I don't want to serve you, I don't want to love you, I want to enjoy. And at any time we can say, Krishna, I'm ready to serve you. As soon as we indicate to Krishna, Krishna, I don't want to serve you, you're back in Placentia. Go ahead. Try to be enjoyed. Go ahead. Try to imitate me. Go ahead. And as soon as I say, Krishna, Krishna, I'm sorry, I want to come back, you're liberated. Problem is, one day I'm trying to serve Krishna, and the next day I'm trying to be independent. So I'm going up and down, up and down, up and down. So Sanat Kumar is saying, when the soul is transcendental, it exists for fulfilling the desires of the Lord. Let's look at your favorite, Radharani. Radharani is the perfection of what Sanat Kumar is explaining. In Bhagavatam, in the Govinda Lilamrita, and so many of the Vaishnava literatures, there is so much detailed information how Srimati Radharani exists only for serving Krishna. She has no personal desire. She is existing only to satisfy Krishna's senses. That's why Radharani is considered the greatest devotee of them all. Because her every constant, whether she's awake or asleep, as Lord Chaitanya teaches us in his final Shikshastakam, Ashlishyava Pararatang Pinashtumam Adarshanan Marmahatam Korotuba Yata Tata Va Vididhatu Lampato Matprana Natastu Saeva Napra. That final Shikshastakam verse of Lord Chaitanya is actually spoken by Radharani. She says, Krishna, you are my worshipful Lord. Unconditionally. Unconditional. And then she proves it. My Lord, you can make me happy by embracing me or making me feel oneness with you, or you may break my heart by rejecting me. Doesn't matter. I am not giving you up. You read the 5 chapters of the Rasa Leela. What did Krishna do in the beginning of the Rasa dance? He left all the gopis and went deep into the forest with Radhika. But then he even left Radhika. And she met up with the gopis, and they all sat down on the bank of the Yamuna and did their Nam Hut program, where they sang their famous Gopi Gita. Tavakatamritam tapta jivatam. Anyway, what's that whole Gopi Gita? Each prayer is saying the same thing. Krishna, please return. Krishna had left them, but they did not reject Krishna. And Krishna, when he finally did return, he said, this is why I have returned. Because even though I removed myself from you, you did not reject me. You kept searching for me. You kept praying for me. And that's the only reason why I have returned. And then Krishna made a startling announcement. Those of you who know Bhagavad Gita, Ye yatam mang prapadyante tangstachaiva bhajamyaham. Famous verse of Bhagavad Gita. As you surrender to me, Krishna says, I reciprocate. You know that verse? Chapter 4. Shri Sri Radha Raman Bhagavan Ki Jai. Sri Sri Radha Radha Raman Bhagavan Ki Jai. Go Premanande. If you don't know that verse, learn it, because it's very important. Krishna says, as you surrender, I will reciprocate. It's a nice statement. As you surrender, Krishna responds. But what did he tell the gopis that night of the Rasa dance when he left and then returned? He said, actually, you gopis, I cannot repay you. Your love for me is so great, I can't repay it even in the lifetime of Brahma. So in the Gopis Bhagavad Gita, there's not this verse. Because Krishna himself says, I can't repay you. Everybody else, Krishna says, as you surrender, I reciprocate. With the Gopis, impossible. It's impossible to repay you. That's how great the love of Radharani and the Krishna feels indebted. Think about that. If somebody's indebted to you, right? What does that mean? They're indebted to you. Krishna says, I'm indebted to Radharani and the Gopis. Okay, everybody chant the Maha Mantra one time. I told you I was in a good mood. Okay, let's go to the next statement by Sanat Kumar. Only because of different causes does a person see a difference between oneself and others. Then he gives an example. Just as one sees the reflection of a body appearing differently manifested on water, on oil, or in a mirror. So, you'll see in Bhagavad Gita, Pandita Sama Darshana. Those who are transcendentally situated, they don't make a distinction between the self and others. I'll give a practical example. In a family, you're all working together to be happy together. Again, husband and wife. They should not see any difference between them because each one has the interest of the others at heart. Same way with your children. Ladies, you especially. You'll do anything for your child, will you not? Even when she's grown up, right? You'll do anything. I know from my wife and daughter. My daughter is now 40 years old. I've said many times, if something happens, Prabhuji, I'll talk to you later. I gotta go take care of our daughter. So, even in a family, because you have the same interest, you don't make a distinct. That's like, if say somebody has many children, and you ask them, well, what's your favorite? What kind of question is that? All your children are your favorite. There's a famous story in the Bible. This is a very famous story. So there was this king, and I think the king had 2 wives. So there was this son. So each wife was claiming, it's my son. Because, of course, the one with the son is going to have more prestige and prominence. So each one was claiming, it's my son. So the king was very smart. Okay, you both say that this is your son. I'm going to cut the child in half. You can both have half. Now, the real mother immediately said, no, no, no. Let the other have. The king said, now I know who the real mother is. Because the real mother would sacrifice her own interest to save the child. Same concept. This is the closest thing we can come to. Prabhupada even said, the closest example to pure love of God is the love of a mother for her child. That's the closest material example we can give for this concept. Selfless. That mother was willing to give the other wife the child because when the king said, we're going to cut the... No. The other one has no feeling. It's not her child. She couldn't care less. She's only thinking about her own position. The real mother, okay, let her have it. So the pure devotee only is thinking of Krishna's interest. Now, this can only happen when you are fully convinced that God is a person. That's why in Bhagavad Gita, that chapter 12 is so important. Because Arjuna asks the question, Krishna, should I worship you impersonally or personally? And Krishna immediately responds, you should worship my personal form, in my opinion. So this concept, worshiping God as the supreme person, is essential to understanding bhakti. If God is not a person, there's no bhakti. That's impossible. Bhakti has to mean two persons. Somebody who is being served and the person who's serving. That's bhakti. The servant and the served. Now Sanat Kumar continues. When the mind and senses are attracted to sense objects for enjoyment, the mind becomes agitated. My favorite example, this is the Christmas season. So on the television and everywhere you go, advertisements. What are they trying to do? Agitate your senses, especially the children. They're watching their programs on the TV, but you don't get that for free. After 5 minutes, the commercial comes, and the kid sees, oh, yeah, Mommy, Mommy, I want you to buy me this for Christmas. That's been going on for so long. So yes, when someone's mind and senses are attracted to the objects for enjoyment, the mind becomes agitated. Do you want to become peaceful? Bhagavad Gita's 2nd chapter is very clear. Free yourself from meditating on the objects of the senses. Instead, meditate on Krishna or Krishna's service. Because as soon as you start, 2nd chapter of Bhagavad Gita, the reason why it's called Contents of the Gita Summarized, because that whole science is given. You start contemplating of the objects of the senses, you become attached. Once you become attached, lust. But Bhagavad Gita is clear. Lust has to end in frustration. It's science. Lust will always end in frustration. When you become frustrated, what happens? Angry. Then, once you become angry, you lose your intelligence. When you lose your intelligence, you're going deeper into the material whirlpool. It all began with contemplating the objects of the senses for enjoyment. But Prabhupada gives a very simple example. You're walking down the street, you're taking a walk, you see a beautiful flower. So the non-devotee thinks, oh, that nice flower. The devotee thinks, he sees the same flower. What does the devotee think? Oh, what a nice flower to offer to Krishna. They're both seeing the same thing, but the consciousness is different. One is thinking, my enjoyment. The other one is thinking, how can I love and serve Krishna? Now Sanat Kumar continues. As a result of continually thinking of sense objects, one's real consciousness almost becomes lost. Yes, because real consciousness or original consciousness is Krishna consciousness. Originally, we were with Krishna or one of his expansions, Narayan, we were engaged in service. But inexplicably, because of what I mentioned in the beginning, free will, the thought came, I don't want to serve Krishna. I want to be served. Go ahead. Go to Placentia or wherever. We gave up that original consciousness of serving Krishna. So, when you are constantly thinking of sense objects, that original pure Krishna consciousness almost becomes lost. And he gives an example. Like water in a lake that is gradually sucked up by the big grass straws on its bank. Which reminds me of the incident when what was that incident? Oh yes, Samba. Samba was dressed to look like a pregnant woman. And to make her look pregnant, they put a big iron club. And Samba was dressed in a sari. So Samba was a young boy, maybe like a teenager or whatever. So Samba and his brothers, they're all Krishna's sons, they went to see these sages. And so they wanted to play a joke. Oh, sages, can you predict what this girl will give birth to? You don't joke with sages. So they became angry. They were thinking, these are Krishna's sons and they're mocking us? No. So they said, yes, that girl will give birth to that very thing which will destroy your whole dynasty. The boys went, what? Because they thought it was fun. But the rishis didn't take it. So they went to Ugrasena. Ugrasena was the father of Kamsa. But after Kamsa was killed, Ugrasena became the king of the Yadu dynasty in Dwaraka. And Ugrasena didn't want to disturb Krishna. So Ugrasena said, I'll take care of it. Give me the club. So Ugrasena ordered that the club be filed down. File it down. He figured if there's no club, it can't destroy the dynasty. So they filed it, until they got to about a piece this size, a little lump. And they said, So they threw all those filings and the lump into the sea. The lump was swallowed by a fish. The fish was captured by a hunter, and he made an arrow, and with that arrow, he shot Krishna in the foot. But Krishna did not die. Now, the iron filings were sucked up by the same thing, the canes, the reeds on the lake. So later, when the Yadu dynasty became intoxicated and they began to fight one another, they grabbed those canes, and as soon as they grabbed them, they became iron. And that's how they killed each other. And they even attacked Krishna and Balaram. Why? They were intoxicated. Therefore, drinking liquor is most sinful. This episode points out how sinful is drinking liquor and getting intoxicated. Anyway, I could go on, but I'm not permitted. The temple wants me to stop. I will see you next month. Thank you for allowing me this privilege. I cannot tell you how happy I am right now. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Jai Radha Madhava, Jai Kunja Bihari. Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha, Jai Giri Varadhari. Yashodanandana Brajabaranagara, Yashodanandana Gopi Jana Ranjana, Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana, Yamuna Tiravanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Radha Madhava, Jai Kunja Bihari. Jai Radha Madhava, Jai Kunja Bihari. Jai Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha, Jai Giri Varadhari. Yashodanandana Gopi Jana Ranjana, Yashodanandana Gopi Jana Ranjana, Yamuna Tiravanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Ram, Hare Hare. Jai Radha Madhava, Jai Kunja Bihari. Jai Radha Madhava, Jai Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jaya Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha, Jai Gopi Janna Vallabha, Jai Gopi Janna Vallabha, Jai Girivaradhari, Jai Girivaradhari, Jai Girivaradhari. Yashoda Nandana Gopi Janaranjana, Yashoda Nandana Gopi Jana Vallabha, Yashoda Nandana Gopi Jana Vallabha, Yamuna Tiravanachari, Yamuna Tiravanachari, Yamuna Tiravanachari. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Rama Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Ram, Hare Hare. Govinda Madhava Navanita Taskara, Govinda Madhava Navanita Taskara. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Jai Radha Raman Hari Bol, Jai Jai Radha Raman Hari Bol. जय जय राधा रमन हरि बोल। 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 जहाँ विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजक स्तोत्र सत्य श्रीमद इस डिवाइन ग्रेस AC Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। नामाचार्य हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण